Hello and welcome to Web Design Technology Summer of 2020. I hope you are safe. I hope you are taking care of yourself, and I'm very happy that you decided to register for the class. And my hope is that I will be able to teach you about web design technology and what it is. Before I will start talking about what is the essence of this class, I would like to go over the syllabus shortly so you will be able to understand what does it entail. So the course description is that I'm not going to talk to you about much about HTML. I will give you links that will help you to catch up. My obsession or my passion is about the programming aspect of web design, which means that I will talk about a lot about JavaScript and PHP, and I will make this connection later on in my PowerPoint presentation. But we will also learn about how to connect and how to implement a database and send information to the database in order for you to store this information. Textbooks. There are two textbooks. It's not required. The PHP programming with MySQL is available for you in the library for free. So you will need to log on to the USF library and be able to receive that. And most of the materials will go through my lectures. I did not open up all my modules yet, but I will do that very soon. And so you'll be able to go through and be able to experience and learn about web technology. I will try to have once a week a meeting with Zoom or a team, Microsoft Team, in order for you to have some involvement and be able to ask questions. So how is the grades going to affect me? I know this is the main issue. So you're going to have a blog where you're going to describe each assignment, what was difficult, what was easy, and what did you learn out of it. Why? Because one of the things that I cannot expect or I don't know how to understand when the class is online is your own personal experience. So the objective of the blog is that you will try to communicate, try to show what was hard, what was easy in order for me to improve. As you do your homework, my objective or my assignment is to read your blog in order for me to communicate better, in order for you to have an easy time with the material that we cover. We are going to have a weekly assignment. Each week you're going to have an assignment. You're going to create a website which is free and it has the ability to have PHP, and I will talk what is PHP soon, and MySQL and you will not need to pay money. This is comparison to USF website that does not give you this facility to use PHP or MySQL. So that's why it's so important for me that you will have a platform that you can learn about the power of PHP and MySQL in your work in the class. And the final project. And the idea of the project is that I want you to have idea. For example, I'm obsessed with local farmers or local community volunteers, and I will create a website. And so the idea is that you will develop a website where you're going to offer, example, free delivery from the local community, and you're going to apply all the programming languages we learn from the front end to the back end in order for you to facilitate the ability to order from a stranger, order the food or the vegetables or the flowers, and be able to carry it to the farmers so he will be able to apply and to deliver those goods. one more thing that is really important. This is the class schedule. I schedule 10 modules, and the last module is basically review and open questions. I will also open the class to meetings that we will raise questions. You will have the opportunity to raise questions about the class, about the material I'm going to cover, because I'm going to cover quite a lot. So this is your opportunity to raise your hand and say, I don't understand what you're talking to me, which is fine, which is what I'm looking for in order for me to be a better communicator. So now let's back off and start again with regard to what are we actually learning. So let's take a look back to web development. And the web was developed in 1990 when it was developed by the European Laboratory Practice Physics, Crane, in Switzerland. And the original purpose of the web was to provide easy access for documents that exist on Crane computer network. The issue that was really important during that time is that those documents would have hypertext links that allowed to open a new page or a new browser in order for you to review it better. But with that came the idea that we need some formal language, like we are using Microsoft Word in classes, or when we write email or assignment. In this case, the HTML became a hypertext markup language that was able to be transformed into HTML, which be able us to post it on the web. And so everyone, doesn't matter where you're coming from, if you have a browser, you are able to see that. So it is basically a markup language, and it has a logical structure that allowed us to be transparent with regard to what it is. So it becomes way for us to work with a web browser in order for us to display it, and the HTML is basically only the interface of what we do in the background. So the HTML, and this is, I'm not going to go over the HTML, I'm going to do that in the first stage. I want you to pick it up yourself, but the HTML documents are basically a text document that also contain tags. We will encounter those tags later on when we are talking about JavaScript, or we are talking about PHP, and even when we store data in MySQL, it's part of the idea. So the tags including in HTML, the tags including the format commands such as bold or italic, or the control that allow the user input. Example, when you submit a query, what happens? How do it happens? So those are only the interface of the web with regard to the idea. And what is sometimes so important with regard to HTML is the brackets. Everything has to be very tight, close with the brackets. You open the brackets and you close the brackets in order for the commands that you are putting into play. So the closing and the element also refers to the element, and the information contained with the element, opening and closing the tag, refers to the content. So basically, whenever you open a tag with information, this element is the content. So the elements do not require a closing tags, are called empty elements. Everything is, again, very simple and with regard to structure. So the HTML description is the format, the body, which is the body of the document, ability to, and you always has to close it with in the end with HTML. Again, this is just a quick review of the HTML, and this is the structure. As you can see, you start with the HTML, a head, a title, and you close the head, and then the body is like what it is in Intel. But the web also has a communication protocol. An example, what is a communication protocol? The ability to have a HTTP protocol so everyone will be able to access. So either the domain name for the web server or the web server for internet protocol address. So basically, the HTML allowed us to create this protocol and be able to connect to other documents inside, and this is part of it. The IP is basically something that consists of 4 groups of numbers separated by periods. So each internet domain is associated with a unique IP address, and it is part of how we communicate, and you will see it quite closely when you're going to start your web hosting, and you will see that they will assign you a unique IP address. The HTTP is the idea of the transmission protocol that allowed you to be accessible to any other user. So the Hypertransfer Protocol Secure is the idea that when you go to Amazon or you go to Gap.com or OldNavy.com, it is more secured, so it requires a little more security and privacy on your bank in order for you to enroll to it. So the idea is the protocol, the domain name, the directory, and the file name, and even though you not see it, this is part of the structure of every website with that regard. HTML becomes an internet standard in 1993, so it has been a long time. We are talking now about HTML5, HTML6, and it is basically becoming more extensive hypertext markup language, which also embedded XML and allowed us to display more information. And one of the things that HTML is very suitable is that it will present itself in any web browser, and now there's a lot of application already embedded that type of idea. But as we see the development of the web, we also have idea of consortium, which means that it is international standards organization that developed the W3C, and idea of it is that we will have a standard so everyone will be able to log on to our website or log on to our development and be able to see it. Even nowadays, when we are talking about our phones as a web as a web technology ability to see the web, it is based again on the W3C consortium and the idea what it is Intel. I want to emphasize again, I'm not going to talk about advanced architectural structure of the web. I'm going to talk about a very simple structure. And the reason for that is that if it was advanced web technology, I probably would talk about substructures and ability to develop it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about a very simple idea of it. So we are going to talk about backend, the server, and we are going to talk about front end, the interface that the user will see. So it's usually called two-tier system, and the idea is that it requires the ability to data storage and management, but it also allowed us to develop interface that the people are allowed to log on. So again, the idea of front end, and backend. And when you have a client, for example, my own website, the client requests something, the server responds and open up the gate for it. That's part of how we're going to work with regard to the response or the structure that we are going to learn in this class. Okay, but we also need to we need to remember that we are talking about the idea of programming. And one of the things that we learn very quickly is that the web is full of programming aspect. Example, when we log on to Facebook, or when we log on to Amazon, or when we log on to your favorite network or movies, and even Netflix, it has to consist of programming in order for it to facilitate the connection between the database of all the movies they have and your request for that particular movie. So that's why we are talking about programming that will facilitate the ability to access it. One of the two main programming language is JavaScript and PHP. Web programming is little different from a regular programming. It requires the ability to understand the application area, understand the client and the server scripting, but also the idea of the data technology, and that's according to Techopedia.com definition of web technology. So I talked about JavaScript. What it is the idea that we are a client-side scripting language that allows the page author to develop interactive web page and site. So the idea here is that it is a programming language. It's not extensive as C++ or Java, but it allowed us to have the ability to interact with the user, ability to have more interface, graphical interface, and ability to process. JavaScript allowed us to turn a static page into much more interactive. It changes the content of the web page after the browser has visited, and create a visual effects such as animation, and control the web browser, the size of the windows, for example. We talked about 2 tiers, and now I need to talk about the 3 tiers. And the 3 tiers is the client system server that consists of a client tier, which is the user interface or the web browser, the process tier, which is the middle tier, which is the interaction between the web browser and the data storage, and the ability to store everything to it. So basically what we have here is that there is the idea of a process tier that handles the interaction. There is the data storage that stores the data, and this is part of how we process the idea of the data. Server-side scripting refers to the language that execute from the web browser. That's something that HTML and JavaScript cannot do. And the idea here is that we are going to apply PHP in order for us to communicate with a web server. In this case, we are going to have a form. The form is going to communicate with a database that will store the information. This requires PHP and allowed us to store this information that we're going to submit to the database. That's the structure. This is it. So PHP basically is playing a very key role in what I see as the web technology. Why? It is the idea of background and ability to modify and ability to access and combine HTML and JavaScript and into MySQL database and work together in order for you to allow communication with a server. So the idea here is that the general rule is that we use client-side scripting to handle the interface, and use PHP to use with a server-side scripting, which allowed us to have the ability to calculate or to idea of data storage. Amazon, again, Facebook, or any other big website often use that. MySQL, and this is the database that we are going to use. The idea of MySQL is basically it is the open application of MySQL. So it is the standard ability, but what is really important in MySQL from my point of view is that it uses PHP and Perl as a communication language to do that. So it is ability to apply it and to store it, and you will learn how to do that. For next week, you're going to create your first web hosting site, and this is the website you're going to open it. I will talk about that in my next segment, my next video. And you're going to also create your own blog where you're going to describe to me your problems in order for me to understand. There are many students in the class, so I like to ask that your blog will be very specific to the problems that you address, so I'll be able to address your problems and help you to overcome that. This is something in the end, when you register for the website, it will give you this idea. Let's start something, ability to host it. This is, you see on the top my name, and you will see that it is the structure of the website that we are going to build. A little bit about your professor this semester. In 2007, I created the first online newspaper. This is my idea. This is my implementation. I created it. Yes, you will probably hear your language doesn't sound American or doesn't sound, it sounds foreign. Yes, I am Israeli. And what I did was I created a first online newspaper in Hebrew, and it was in 2007 when I was young and have a lot of hair. I also worked on other applications such as video conferencing. I created email client server, and that was the interface. Everything was on the web. So the idea was that to show the idea of process of new mail to read, to do, in order for me to have more access or more understanding, and ability to create a mailing list and everything else. This is the interface that I basically created. So this is part of it. I also was involved in animation, and I'm very keen about visual. And so I also work with the Zappa Digital Arts, which is animation company. And this is what we did again with web technology. So this is what part of what I did. I also started my own adventure when I started to apply, when I started my PhD, and I created a company called Visual Alpha that specialized in transformation of information data to visual reports. I will offer this class in the fall, and if you would like to attend the class, it's called Visual Analytics, and it's really about how we take data into visual. So this is part of what I did today. So today I'm associate professor, and my area is visualization and creation, and that's what I do. So this is part one of my presentation. Part two, I will talk about the tools, I will talk about editors, I will talk about the website that you're going to use, and I hope you enjoy that. Your job is to ask questions, to be active, to ask those questions, and enjoy. This is something that you will have the ability to create something unique and something special. So let's keep on. Until next time, see you.